Hello, how you doing? And welcome back to the channel. So Steve Borthwick and that England squad has had a little update yesterday. Once again, a couple of players going out, another player coming back in, and a few more things to talk about as we look ahead to the World Cup with England. I think overall a lot of people incredibly underwhelmed by what they're seeing in terms of selections at the moment, but we'll get into it. So make sure you drop a comment down below. Let me know your views on what we're seeing at the moment and your general views on where you think England are heading ahead of that World Cup. And also, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel as well, then I would massively appreciate it. But let's get into it. I never know when to do videos this summer when it comes to England and World Cup training squads. I feel like there's been about 10 different announcements since the season ended. We had a staggered announcements depending on when players were available after the end of the Premiership season and how much rest they needed and all that sort of thing. So there's been a lot of chopping and changing, but we're pretty close now to when Steve Borthwick will name his squad for the World Cup. Just as a reminder, that is going to be after England's first warm-up game. So England have one warm-up game against Wales, and then the squad will be announced, which is quite interesting. Now, and interesting for a few things that I'll get into in this video. But I think overall, the general feeling amongst England fans is pretty negative at the moment. I don't think I've seen anything positive, really. A lot of people suggesting that it looks like a squad from 2019 or the Eddie Jones era. I think that's fair. There's been a small amount of turnover, but not loads. Not all of that is Steve Borthwick's fault. Some of that, I think, rests with the previous regime. But overall, there's definitely a kind of sense of apathy really at the moment towards this England squad. So let's get into what the latest announcements are. First of all, we've got Vunipola and Ollie Lawrence actually training with the squad now. They've been a part of the squad in a wider sense all summer, but they've both been rehabbing. They are both now training, which is positive to see, and particularly for Ollie Lawrence. He was basically the standout player in the Six Nations, certainly the player that kind of came into the squad and took that opportunity and finally gave England a midfield option that people were feeling pretty positive about. So it's good to see him back. As for Vunipola, haven't seen him for a little while in an England jersey. It seems like he's probably fairly key to plans. I know he seems to split opinion of whether people think he should be in or not. He's maybe one of those players from 2019 that some people think England should have moved on to. I think when you look at the number 8 options, Alex Dombrand, he hasn't exactly impressed in an England shirt, had a pretty poor Six Nations. You've then got Tom Willis, who I really like as a player, but we're not sure quite how he'll go at international level. I think at number 8, you need the power of Vunipola. I also agree with many of you that say, well, Zach Mercer should be there. Zach Mercer, a different type of number 8 to Vunipola. I'd like to see them both there, actually, in terms of options for England, as it is Vunipola is there. With both those guys, though, and this is where it comes back to when England are naming their team for the World Cup. I saw in the Times today, they're reporting that it's unlikely Billy Vunipola or Ollie Lawrence will get any game time before that World Cup squad is announced. It's not looking likely that they will be able to feature in that first warm-up game before the squad is announced. So it looks like they're probably not going to... It's going to be based on training, I suppose, and that's maybe a reflection of where they are in the standing, that even without game time, as long as their fitness levels are looking all right, I suppose England will have warm-up fixtures after that for them both to play. So maybe it's not the end of the world, but I think that's an interesting element to all this as well. I'd expect both of those guys, fitness concerns, making sure they can tick all those off, that they will be in the England World Cup squad. Elsewhere, in terms of the announcements, Mako Vunipola is still at Saracens. He had back surgery, but he is basically just rehabbing with them and trying to get back to fitness. So I would imagine that if he is able to pass those fitness tests and prove his fitness in time for the World Cup, he will be on the plane with England. What it means, though, is Bevan Rodd, who was previously part of the squad and then dropped, has been recalled. And then, strangely, Rapava-Ruskin, along with Cadan Murley, has dropped out of the squad. And there will be a lot of raised eyebrows about that. I think Rapava-Ruskin's form in the Premiership is well worth a shout at international level. With all of this, and what we should probably caveat it with, is none of us know exactly what's happening in training. None of us know exactly how those players are performing. But even so, I can understand the irritation many England fans will feel, the fact that Cadan Murley and Rapava-Ruskin have been dropped by Steve Borthwick. And Cadan Murley, you've got the top try scorer in the Premiership. And when you look at, say, someone, for example, like Johnny May, I would also say Joe Thockensinger as well. They haven't had anywhere near the level of form that Cadan Murley has, or the consistency, but they are part of the England setup. And what I think it means in terms of that back 3 selection is it's about game plan. And I think this is about how England are going to play. Now, I think Murley is a pretty good all-round option. I know he's a brilliant finisher and try scorer. I would still back him to be able to have strengths in other areas of the game in terms of the kicking game to be able to contribute to England. But I think it is Johnny May's ability in that kicking game is a big reason why he is selected. And that, I think, is how England are going to play, unfortunately. A lot of these selections, I think, which people don't like, are a reflection of the fact of how England plan on playing at the World Cup. And that is a kick-heavy game, a very tactical game, trying to back their set piece and have a strong a set piece as possible. And also, with the side of the draw that England are on, they probably don't have to be that great to be able to get to a quarter-final and then maybe even a semi-final, because they'll most likely, you would imagine, play either Wales or Australia if things go to plan in terms of world rankings and things like that. So England don't have to be that good to get themselves quite deep into the tournament. And then at that point, after the last 4 years they've had, I'm sure the RFU would brand it as a success, even though many people would not fall for, the deception of a fairly easy World Cup draw. But that's where we kind of are at the moment. In terms of Mako Vunipola as well, I still feel like he hasn't been at his best for quite a while now. I'd have liked to see Bevan Rodd. I'd like to see Rapava-Ruskin be given chances. I've said that fairly consistently, but it doesn't look like they are going to get those. And it does beg the question. I know we all have a say on selection. I love the debate around it. But when players like that, by multiple coaches, don't get the nod at international level, maybe there is more going on there. I don't know what it is. It'd be nice to have the curtain drawn back for all of us to have a little bit more understanding. But I always think that is just interesting. And it is worth remembering, we don't know what training's been like. They've been in camp for weeks now. Sam Underhill as well, actually, just thinking about it, one of the other players that has dropped out. Again, Sam Underhill at his best has just been brilliant for England, hasn't he? But given the fact that he's been so injury prone, hasn't played loads for Bath over the last season or so, then I'm not too worried. And also for all those people that will say, why isn't Zach Mercer there? Remember, Zach Mercer was dropped from the squad a little while ago. He hasn't been there for a bit now, so it's no shock that he's still not there, basically. Injuries will happen. Players will come in and out. There will always be an element of change here, depending on who makes it, who doesn't. I think what players actually get called up is going to be pretty fascinating as well, particularly if there's issues at scrum half, at number 8. A few different positions that are probably worth keeping an eye on. But that's my general thoughts at the moment. Make sure you drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think of things. Are you part of the England fan base that is apathetic towards what they're seeing, or are you a little bit more positive and going to give them the benefit of the doubt? Because the World Cup draw being as it is, England don't have to be that great to get themselves to a semi-final. We all remember what happened in 2007. That England team were nowhere near the second best team in the world, but they were able to get themselves to the final. So wait and see. Drop a comment down below, like the video and subscribe to the channel as well, and I'll see you in the next one.